Well, the obsessed cognitive dissonance, Neteru is still at it, obsessed with his Black Lord of the Rings fantasies. I just connect to a VPN whenever I'm on YouTube now, ever since this guy started trying to stalk me. Thinks my name is James Peters, which isn't true. I had a random picture of me uploaded by someone who used it without my permission, called himself James Peters. I have an Italian surname. I'm not James Peters. Anyway, he continues with his nonsense and his cognitive dissonance, mental illness. He once uploaded the name of Gemry Shinoda, found personal information on him, and he actually left YouTube because of that. He's not really good at this because I know his full name, I know where he lives, I know his address, like of all his family. I looked it all up, but I'm not going to tell anyone that because I'm not an obsessed stalking type of person who's emotionally triggered when someone disagrees with his pseudo historical nonsense. Now, he thinks that Egyptians magically had a mass exodus when the Arabs invaded, which is more fantasies. He even thinks that sub Saharans all come from the Levant now. More fantasies. There was population exchanges between sub-Saharan Africa and the Levant, but that was only through kingdoms, and it was Caucasoids who invaded Africa first during the Stone Age and during the Neolithic. These people are proof. These sub-Saharans he's referring to are probably isolated tribes, not all of them. They do not originate from the Levant and never did. These people are all mixed. Their Y DNA is haplogroup E, E1b, which is a Caucasoid haplogroup. In fact, the vast majority of sub-Saharan Africans are haplogroup E, which has controversial origins. Some place it in the Horn of Africa, others place it in the Levant and Middle East. But the out of Africa theory is largely debunked these days. I, I theorize that it was expanded after haplogroup J expanded, which is my haplogroup. My haplogroup is J, and the subtype of it is associated with the Sea peoples and the Phoenicians. Anyway, that's another subject, but haplogroup E likely expanded into sub-Saharan Africa during the Stone Age, and they basically invaded and bred many black African women, and they were seemingly pushed out by black African men. I remember seeing what was it? It was a South African shaman, and there was a Celtic cross on a rock. It was Credo Mutua. Obvious cultural connection. So all Caucasoids have similar culture in terms of beliefs and symbols, whether they're Indo-European or not. They're all similar. Anyway, on to the subject at hand. He admitted defeat on my channel before, and he thinks that ancient Egypt is Negroid still, of course. Unlike him, I'm open to opposing views. He constantly blocks anyone who presents any proof that ancient Egypt was Caucasoid, which is why he blocks me. And he thinks he can post on my channel. I never block him since I'm open to any opposing view. I'm not a triggered, emotional woman who displays feminine traits like this guy. He once showed me this funerary statue, which is an unnamed person. It's not even a significant statue, as proof ancient Egypt was black. Just because it looks like he has an afro. But it was part of Egyptian culture to shave your head and wear wigs. These are not Negroids. And this statue's from the Middle Kingdom, Roman period. Here, something real Egyptian right here. This is not a Negroid. That nose, too straight. This one is a favorite with the Afrocentrics, but if you actually look at her mummy, she has straight, wavy hair. These are all Middle Kingdom statues, and none of them resemble Negroids at all. I think Middle Kingdom statues are scarce. I can't seem to find many. Oh, wrong search here. He would never show these. He will never show a depiction of an Egyptian that he can't interpret as looking Negroid. Every single Egyptian here looks Caucasoid, especially this. No one will think that is a black man. None of these are black people, but this one is a favorite with Afrocentrics because he has a wide nose. And they think that Europeans break them off just to conceal it because it's white lies, but it's common practice in ancient societies to deface the previous ruler. That's why so many have broken noses. But none of these are Negroid. And any rational person would understand this. If Egyptian statues looked like this, I'd fully agree it was a black civilization, but none do. Maybe one or two can be interpreted as looking to resembling the ancient Nigerian statues, but hardly any. Old Kingdom statues, there were a lot from this era, and this is the Old Kingdom before any mass foreign invasion of Egypt, and the continuity remains. They look Caucasoid. You can't get around the reality. And one time he spoke about not going by genetic absolutism, his stuck up manner. He's just some loser living in his upper middle class background, similar to me, but he's still living with his parents. He's accomplished nothing in his life. He went to a really bad community college. I don't know if he's even intelligent. I know he has a higher IQ than the average black man, but he's nothing special. That's why he couldn't get into a good school. But you can't deny the genetic facts. Autosomal DNA cannot be denied. The ancient DNA is absolute fact, and they have close Egyptians had close relations ancestrally with Neolithic Europeans and Levantine people of today. Most of them have very little to no Indo-European ancestry, since the Indo-European invasions of the Middle East or migrations, they largely failed. But Europeans today have mostly Indo-European ancestry. This shows all the ancestral components. You can't deny this. This is one of the most advanced ancient DNA calculators ever created, since they have the population references from ancient populations. But it's not accurate for East Asians, since the East Asian populations used are similar to the indigenous East Asians of India. So anyone with East Asian ancestry, that's Northern East Asian, it's not reliable for this, but other than that, it's good. There's actual Coptic Egyptians regarded as the descendants of ancient Egyptians. 82% Neolithic farmer. He's only 2.48% Negroid because of Nubian integration. Probably half of it came from that, and the other half came from the Arab slave trade, which highly dealt with black Africans. And most of the admixture from that was likely due to slave masters breeding black African women, since the Arab slave trade castrated the men. But I've done my ancient DNA, and I obviously have far more ancestral components in common with ancient Egyptians than any Arab would. I mean, not Arab, any Negroid would. Like every Caucasian would. It doesn't matter where in the world they're from. They all would. So they're all the same race. This guy's obsessed with claiming civilizations of my race. Here, this has more specific ancestral components. Neolithic farmers originally came from the Middle East, but the Neolithic farmers in Europe largely descend from pretty sure it's the Anatolian farmers, which are represented by East and West. The Levant are the Middle Eastern farmers. Those are one of the oldest groups. Iranian Chalolithic. Well, Paleolithic comes after Neolithic, but anyway, this is going to be a pretty boring video, but I don't really care. This guy rants forever. You'll make 30 to 1 hour rant videos. I try to keep mine short, but this one's going to be longer. But this displays all the ancestral components. All of these are Caucasoid. So is this. Southeast Eurasian is the indigenous people of India, but one of the castes they use are a high caste, so they'd have more Caucasoid DNA. So some of this component might be Caucasoid, but not much of it. If he did it on here, he'd literally be 80% here at least. The rest would be a mix of this, since he likely has some female slave ancestors who were raped by their slave masters and bred by them. I mean, the entire Negroid lineage has Caucasoid haplogroups, except for A and B are the only Negroid lineages. The Negroid race itself is a young race. They branched off from the Pygmy race, who are basically a race of black midgets. Like the modern Negroid as we know it did not exist until around 5,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago. Caucasoids have been around since a very long time if you go into prehistory and before. But still, I could be wrong because there's a lot about human origins we don't know about. The world is proven hollow. But I'm not going to get into that. Different subject. I'll focus on Egypt. It's madly obvious ancient Egypt wasn't black. Now I made this photo to highlight the individual we're dealing with. This is him. Poster boy for black incel virgins. As you can see, he clearly doesn't resemble any ancient Egyptian at all. How delusional can you get? I look more similar to the Egyptians because I'm Caucasoid like them. He's not. He'd be regarded as a foreigner. He'd not be respected in Egypt. He'd be even less respected than a black Nubian who would have been assimilated. They did not like Negroids in this civilization. That's why they conquered them and assimilated the Nubians into their culture. They're regarded as foreigners, slaves, and enemies. It's as simple as that. North Africa has a long tradition of enslaving Negroids. The Berbers did it for over a millennia. It continues to this day in Mauritania. The supposed black Moors were just mercenary soldiers and freed slaves who were assimilated into society. And they were also slaves. They were never considered actual Moors because being a Moor was being a Berber or an Arab. Since the Berber cultures, North Africa was all Islamized and Arab supremacy was based on anyone who had some Arab ancestry. But both groups alike just despise black Negroids. I'm not trying to justify it, I'm just saying what the reality is. And this is the reality. Should be noted that most Sumerian kings and Egyptian rulers had light brown, hazel, or brown eyes. They just depicted their light blue-eyed rulers because it was unique and they didn't really see that much in society. So obviously any physical feature that's rare is going to be considered even more desired in a society, and blue and green eyes. And with Egyptians today and ancient, probably only maybe 5% of the population maximum. Wasn't many people with these features. But obvious cultural connection here between Sumer and Egypt. The Sumerian crest, the Egyptian crest, highly similar. It's actually depicting the star Orion, which is supposedly where occultists view the Sumerians as coming from Orion, from the Aldebaran solar system, and there's actually two planets in the Aldebaran solar system populated by a Caucasoid imperialist fascist race who supposedly collaborate with the Draconian Empire, a race of tall lizard men, and this Caucasoid race basically Many of them are 2.5 meters tall, blonde, Nordic types. There's another planet populated by like basically human-looking brown Caucasian Middle Eastern people. Their other planet is mostly European-looking, but has a minority of brown Caucasian-looking people. It's basically a unification of a Caucasoid alien race into a powerful fascist empire. That's all it is. I don't want to get into the crazy alien stuff. Most people would not believe it these days, but I guarantee within within the far future, it will be common knowledge that the Earth is hollow. When the globalist elite is defeated, when this planet is liberated, and white genocide is brought to a halt, they will know because the elite today want the mass replacement of Europeans worldwide. They view non-Europeans as easier to divide and control, and they view Europeans as a threat to their power. And they are a threat. You look at the Weisgard group in Europe, you see the populist rebellion in Italy today. The Europeans are starting to take back their countries from the consumerist, cultural Marxist, globalist elite. And we will win in the end. And European men will continue to dominate this planet eternally. And the Caucasoid race will eventually be united also, hopefully. But these are things that will happen in the far future. No use dwelling on it in this life. Anything else? Oh, yeah, of course. He would not show this. He would never show this. Clear Caucasoids here. Well, that's about it. Enjoy your Black Lord of the Rings Wakanda, Black Panther Fantasyland little beta incel version.